Theoretically, Flight Risk should have been the perfect movie to brighten up a winter evening. A tense thriller in a confined space, where three people must fight for their lives and air. On paper, it all checks out. A charismatic villain played by Mark Wahlberg, an ambitious director in Mel Gibson, and the claustrophobic setting of a small plane flying over Alaska. But instead of an adrenaline-fueled thrill ride, what we get feels more like a brass band playing from a mismatched score, each instrument technically in tune, but the music fails to resonate. The central trio is Marshall Madeline Harris, Michelle Dockery, criminal accountant Winston, Topher Grace, and their pilot, Daryl Booth, Mark Wahlberg. On paper, it's intriguing. A seasoned female officer, a cowardly comic relief, and a predator-like killer. The problem is that the characters are so stuck in their archetypes that it feels like the script was hastily written. Madeline is your typical hero with a past. She made a mistake and is now desperately trying to redeem herself. Dockery does her best with the role, but there's little to work with beyond the standard mix of stern look plus sarcastic line. Winston, on the other hand, is a caricature of the cowardly intellectual. Instead of eliciting sympathy, he grates on the audience, even when the story tries to give him redemptive moments. And then there's Wahlberg as Daryl, the standout, for better or worse. His villain feels like a blend of a horror movie maniac and a B-movie antagonist. Some of his scenes work thanks to Wahlberg's natural charisma, but beyond his performance, the character lacks logic and believability. If he spent most of his life in prison, how exactly did he learn to fly a plane? The answer: he's just a villain, and villains in this movie apparently know how to do everything. Thrillers set in confined spaces have great potential. Think Rear Window or Lock, where the limited setting becomes a catalyst for tension. In Flight Risk, however, the plane is more of a backdrop than an active participant. Instead of exploiting the claustrophobic environment, the film has its characters running back and forth in the cabin, solving problems that often feel contrived. One of the film's biggest issues is Gibson's direction. Unlike his past work, there's no sense of craftsmanship here. The action scenes lack excitement, the dialogue is forgettable, and the editing feels like someone accidentally shuffled the scenes out of order. At times, the movie seems to think it's smarter than it is, throwing in subplots that not only go nowhere, but also distract from the main story. With Topher Grace in the cast, you'd expect at least some humor to land. Instead, the jokes feel half-baked, like undercooked pastries leaving a bad aftertaste. Most of the humor comes down to awkward one-liners or wildly inappropriate threats from Wahlberg. This creates a strange dissonance. The movie doesn't fully commit to either absurdity or genuine tension. The visuals are one of the film's few saving graces. The stark white expanses of Alaska contrast beautifully with the cramped interior of the plane, creating a tension that could have been effective had Gibson paid closer attention to the details. Instead, the atmosphere feels like an afterthought, lingering somewhere in the background. The score, if it exists, is utterly forgettable, and the sound design is too sterile for a film that should keep viewers on the edge of their seats. Flight Risk is a movie that could have been a gripping thriller, but instead serves as a reminder of how a strong concept can crumble under weak execution. There are moments that might make you smile or hold your breath, but they're too few and far between to justify its nearly hour-and-a-half runtime. As one of the characters might describe the flight, this wasn't a journey, it was turbulence.